Old Wounds Cut Deep. Written and read by Little Owl. Diesel was not sorry. He was not apologetic for his narcissistic persona, nor the actions he committed in the past. Not for the framing, the manipulation, for making a deal with the trucks, not for making a mess of the harbour, not for tricking others or causing accidents. Not a single one did his non-existent heart feel any remorse for. For one simple reason. They were in the past. He was not evil, or at least he did not see himself as evil. So why should that still be determined by incidents what felt like eons in the past? Nobody could count on one hand the heinous things the Black Class 08 had committed in the past. Yet Diesel simply did not see apologising for them as something he should be losing too much sleep over. Besides, his supposed Steam counterparts were hardly saints themselves. The hypocriticism and childish behaviour was hardly a device of his own conniving machinations. He was not sorry because there was no reason to be sorry. The reality is that the world keeps turning. Everyone gets on with their lives. So why should he not be able to get on with his life when all he has done is put the work in? He saw himself, and everyone else, as one cog, and any cog that spins faster or makes itself bigger than any other makes the system break down. So with that logic, there was no other choice than to just move on. One day, the shunter found himself taking over shunting duties from Ari and Bert, who both took bad fuel from the ironworks' fuel stations. Without any hesitation or complaint, he headed down and took the burden of both of his brothers. He did not even let the two Diesels apologise, not that they were expecting any response from Diesel. The trucks thankfully kept their tricks to a minimum, and everything seemed normal. For Diesel anyway. He felt weirdly comfortable around the smelter's shed. Not because he felt immortal, his class was half a century old at this point. It was simply a strange fascination. It fascinated him that with all the life his colleagues had, at one point or another, they would end up as lifeless steel, strewn along the line side, and yet the sight was not particularly gory or graphic. Every time a human became a corpse, it would be buried completely out of sight. Yet when vehicles are killed, all their parts are just littered around a yard for everyone, including vehicles themselves, to see, like it's just a regular sight. There's also the odd rusted wheel, or shred of scrap metal, that lay near the main line, the equivalent of a human being's amputated limb being strewn along a pavement for no reason. Instead of dodging this gory fact of life, Diesel felt compelled to let it run through his thoughts as he marshalled the lines of wagons inside the main smelting complex. The droning of the machines provided ambience to the ominously distinct red glow of the pot, the smoke of which making the room incredibly stuffy. Making things worse was the fact Diesel could not itch the greasy smudge off his face. Still, he supposed that's what washdowns were for. As the day wore on, more tiredness grew in Diesel, as well as grease and smudge on his face. His wheels ached something fierce as the blue sky gave way to a hot pinkish dusk as shadows gathered around the scrapped remains. The spiders that had made their homes in them scuttled in and around their boilers, nestling themselves in for the forthcoming night. Diesel was unprepared to converse with anyone as he waited for his wheels to carry him and his last line of trucks for the day into the siding. He grunted as he persevered through his exhaustion, his mind fully focused on the trainette's buffer before the yard foreman made his way to him as Diesel rolled his eyes.
Good work, Diesel. Now we just have the night deliveries to go.
Diesel felt like screeching at this prospect.
Now, before you bite my head off, it has been arranged with Sir Topham that Duck will come and assist you.
Even worse,
Diesel muttered. This was not because he and Duck used to be arch rivals. If anything, Duck seemed very resolute, unwilling to even speak about both engines' past with each other. If they were not going to bring it up, Diesel saw no point in speaking face to face about it. The thing was, both engines would be most likely alone, so realistically, the conversation could possibly come up.
why are you still thinking about that, you idiot?
Diesel's thoughts ridiculed himself.
Look, you may not have apologized, but that doesn't mean you have not swallowed your pride. So if both you and Duck know what's good for you, shut up about it.
Diesel was clearly not in the mood to have things on his mind that wasn't his work, as he shunted the last train and sat patiently waiting for the Great Western Pannier. At last, a deep-toned whistle came into earshot as Duck rounded the corner and puffed into the open doors of the smelting shed. The ominous blood-red glow washed over his face as he gave a mockingly evil grin.
Diesel!
Duck's voice echoed in the acoustics of the shed.
Prepare to meet your maker, Diesel!
Diesel looked away with an unimpressed expression.
Oh, but that gave you a fright, didn't it, Diesel?
No.
Came the blunt and honest reply.
I'm just being friendly, Diesel. Then again, that in your dictionary of how to live miserably, that seems to translate to annoying, so I'll cut you some slack.
Diesel grunted in an annoyed manner, clearly wanting some peace and quiet away from Duck.
Very perceptive, aren't we, Mr. Narrator?
Yes, wait, no, you're not supposed to break the fourth wall here! Anyways, eventually both got to work with the final loads of scrap for the day. Duck was in a chatty mood, considering the time of day, but Diesel still kept himself to himself, secretly making a promise to himself that if Duck said there were two ways of doing things again, he would not hesitate in throwing him into the smelting pot. Dusk held on for as long as it could, but the power of the inevitable night overwhelmed and consumed the waking earth. Yet the power of the night remained distant from the harsh red glow of the smelting shed as both engines began finishing up. Duck observed the almost empty rails he and the Class 08 diesel had just cleared. Trucks brimming with scrap metal to be melted down and reused were now tidily arranged. He noticed in the middle road one short line of 8 trucks that still needed to be shunted.
One more line.
He remarked aloud.
Don't fuss yourself, Diesel. After all, doing the last job of the day is a true mark of a great Western...
And not of a British Railways diesel.
Diesel asked as Duck stopped to look at him.
Depends on the diesel.
Duck sent a knowing glance his way.
If he's someone who gets his work done without fuss, or accidents, or blackmail, or manipulation...
Diesel felt the warmth of the inside of the shed that little bit more.
Again, I don't think there's a soul on earth capable of such wicked and...
As his fury rose, his instinctual reaction sent him towards the point to switch to the center line as he cut off Duck.
Allow me.
Diesel said through gritted teeth, as Duck looked on slightly amused.
Still a touchy subject, is it, Diesel?
Diesel refrained from replying as he shunted the trucks face first, towards a set of buffers in front of a large pool of molten and melted steel. Diesel travelled towards the buffers much faster than he would have liked. He found his mind too overwhelmed with the exhaustion he felt after this particularly busy day, and Duck bringing up a piece of his past he had tried forgetting for the longest time was far from helpful. Duck moved forward slightly, trying to keep in Diesel's earshot.
You know, Diesel, if it's bothering you that much, you could always just say you're sorry.
Duck, please!
Diesel's pathetic attempt to hide his defensive reaction was bested by an uncomfortable feeling inside that to any engine not in denial would have identified as guilt.
You know, Diesel, almost 65 years have passed, and not once have I heard that word come out of you.
Duck's voice was eerily chipper as Diesel accelerated more, as Duck's words put him between a rock and a hard place. But unbeknownst to him, Duck had slowly started to cruise up closer, directly behind him.
I don't know what kind of tosh you're on about, Duck.
Diesel stated, his eyes glancing upwards, trying to avert them anywhere other than Duck.
Oh, the right word will come to you when you swallow your pride.
Duck's grin grew wider as Diesel's frantically wandering eyes caught one glimpse at his face, and could not avert it, no matter how hard he tried. The solution, in his eyes, was to go even faster, towards the buffers, before the smelting pot.
Duck, look.
Diesel tried conveying frustration, but his voice involuntarily started trembling nervously.
We've literally got one more train to marshal, and then we can talk about this.
We can talk about it now. Why won't you talk about it now, Diesel?
Duck replied, his eyes fully zeroed in on Diesel. Diesel could not explain, but he somewhat felt the gaze pierce deep through his cold exterior.
Because there's no point. It happened ages ago. There's no point for me to say it.
Why?
Duck's tone somewhat mimicked that of a child, whose whys were a mix of genuine curiosity and playful teasing. This unsettled Diesel to no end.
Duck, for the last time!
Diesel raised his voice once more.
I am not, and I will never apologize.
Diesel's words were cut off by a crash and a rumbling sensation, as his ears almost went deaf at the screech of concrete beneath him. He stared dead ahead, and then below, to see his trucks, one by one derailing and falling into the large smelting pot in front of him. Mercifully, the truck he was coupled to dangled after getting trapped on the remains of the shattered buffers. Diesel stared down at the steaming molten below, bubbling like a volcano as panic rose within Diesel. The fascination with engine corpses suddenly didn't seem so apparent, as the reality sunk in at the possibility of him becoming one if he fell into the vat below.
Oh dear, don't worry, Diesel, I'm coming.
Something about Duck's casual tone made Diesel feel even more uneasy than he already was, as Duck gained closer to the almost dangling Diesel. Diesel thought he heard satisfied murmurs escape the Pannier tank's mouth.
You don't know how long I've waited for this moment,
Duck said with a grin.
To prove steamies are better than diesels. Very mature, Duck. Now if you're quite done playing grown-up, I'd greatly appreciate some assistance.
Diesel felt Duck buffer up to him roughly, somewhat jerking him forward, leaving his front four wheels off the rails and grinding the concrete that lay just before the pool of molten. Diesel was frantic now.
Duck! That's not helping!
Oh, so it's help you're wanting. Well, is the great and powerful Diesel asking for help from someone He saw beneath him enough to feel he could tell lies about him and antagonize him in the eyes of his own peers.
Hey, that's not fair!
Diesel felt sick from the slight teetering.
You evoked me by playing a trick on me and humiliating me on my first day!
Diesel felt himself jerk forward again as his first two wheels etched closer and closer to the edge, with the truck he was still coupled to, now hanging by the coupling over the vat. The truck having a terrified look on his face.
This is not what I signed up for!
The truck coupled to Diesel insisted as his pupils turned to pinpricks at the sight of the serious look on Duck's face. Diesel wished to scream for help from the foreman, but his cries were drowned out by the hum of the machinery, and the simple fact, nobody was there.
You know what, Diesel?
He said with a somewhat wholesome smile.
You're right. I was wrong to play that trick on you. And for that...
Duck jerked forward again. Finally, the coupling between Diesel and the truck gave way, sending the screaming truck hurtling into the smelting pot. Diesel's sickening feeling increasing at the sight of the slowly melting wagon. Duck, meanwhile, retained that wicked yet wholesome smile.
I'm sorry. I'm willing to swallow my pride and take responsibility for my actions. Because that's what a really useful engine does.
Duck jerked again. Diesel let out a whimper as he did so.
There you go, Diesel. You just need a little reminder in manners. Am I getting warm?
You are porter, you Grey Western git!
Diesel shouted.
If this is some sick way of getting an apology out of me, this is a bit much!
There are two ways of doing things, Diesel. The Great Western Way or the wrong way.
And this is the Great Western Way?
Sometimes the wrong way is the only way.
Duck slowly pushed against Diesel. Destiny was now around 2 or 3 inches away from him.
It's two little words, Diesel. Doesn't sound too hard, does it?
The condescending tone and the literal cliffhanger continued to churn the sick feeling inside of Diesel like a cyclone. The extent of the situation he was in had started to become clear as the fiery cauldron beneath reflected in his terror-filled pupils. He had ran for over half a century. All because he did not think it was such a big deal. But clearly to Duck, he had been pushed to his breaking point, waiting for him to switch off the line that he'd followed ever since that fateful first encounter. His chances to break before he reached where he was now, depleted. But something stood firm within Diesel. This quack of an engine was not going to boss him about with the threat of something that was going to happen to all of them eventually. What right did he have to suddenly play Grim Reaper simply over a disagreement that happened a lifetime ago? Whether he was literally in the hot seat or not, Diesel's pride was seemingly too much for Duck's desire for an apology.
Are you trying to say sorry through some kind of telepathy, Diesel? I mean, I know we're friends, but I don't think we've reached that level yet.
Duck's speech was now verging on insanity as Diesel glanced back, seeing empty remorse and pent-up frustration from years of not hearing those two simple words.
I'm...
Diesel's voice trembled quietly.
I'm sorry. Are you trying to say something, Diesel?
Duck said with his eyes widened at Diesel's tone. Diesel was running out of alternatives. He had delivered the first word. Now he had one more left to say. At this point, he had started to lean off the side as the steam of the pot started boiling his face. As he took a gulp, to try and say that one word he had been too stubborn to say for over 60 years.
So.
Yes?
Duck murmured impatiently.
I'm sorry.
Can't hear you, Diesel!
Duck proclaimed as he shunted the Class 08 forward once more. Diesel screamed in absolute terror as only his back wheels caught him on dry land. The rest of him hanging in the air as what was beneath him started to become blurry as his panic started to fully consume him.
Well,
Duck roared.
say it!
I'm sorry!
Diesel caught his breath as he felt only his back buffers now touching the concrete, as well, of course, as the coupling Duck had connected himself with Diesel.
For what?
I'm sorry for blaming you! I'm sorry for being an arrogant delinquent when I first arrived! Hell, I'm sorry it took me this long to actually apologize! Just please, have mercy on me! I've done what you asked!
Diesel's screams and pants echoed the building as all seemed to go silent, save for the humming of the shed's engines and the bubbling of the smelting pot. Duck continued to stare at Diesel. Diesel's panic was unimaginable. He was literally staring death in the face. But there was some solace he had gotten from the apology. Expressing the guilt he did not know he had as well as the vulnerability he was too proud to let overcome him. He felt free. Free from everything. Like he could start over. Like everything that happened from now on would go towards becoming the really useful engine he knew he always could be. To no longer hide behind a cold exterior. To be open and honest, to be the friends the other engines so deserved. All thanks to Duck. He had opened his eyes, and now he was different. Diesel, for the first time in his life, had truly changed. He went to thank Duck for helping him see the error of his ways, only to see an emotionless look on Duck's face.
Sometimes, Diesel, it's just too late to apologize.
No!
The coupling broke, and Diesel was sent hurtling towards the smelting pot. His landing was met with a vicious sizzle as he felt the boiling molten melt his steel. It was like no pain he had ever imagined as he screamed. Fading in and out of consciousness, he could see the Pannier tank puffing away, with a cross look on his face, as the burns and the pain consumed Diesel's mind, as he waited for it all to be over.
No!
Diesel's eyes opened with a start, the walls of the shed surrounding him rumbling slightly in the July breeze. He felt the injuries of the nightmare, only to find no burns or parts of him melted. That being said, he felt unbearably hot. He looked outside the shed. The night was clear, without a cloud in sight, as the light of a waning gibbous shone down on the glistening silver rails.
Something wrong, Diesel?
Duck yawned as Diesel's eyes darted to the occupant of the place next to him.
Oh, Duck. I didn't realize I woke you.
Diesel said by instinct. In reality, he did not know what to think, considering the events of the dream he had just had.
It's fine, Diesel.
Duck yawned sleepily.
But if it's all the same with you, I'd like to get my 20 winks before tomorrow.
Diesel froze. He saw Duck's eyes flutter. as he knew he had mere seconds before he fell back to sleep.
Duck, wait!
Diesel said quietly.
What is it, Diesel?
Said Duck on the verge of sleep. Diesel stuttered, almost unable to speak. However, he did manage to conjure a sentence together, albeit an unsatisfactory one.
I'm sorry for waking you.
Oh, don't worry about it, Diesel. We all get bad dreams. Now, please, can we get some sleep before we do the scrapyard shift tomorrow?
Diesel was very sorry.